the group on that process and what went down as well.
Yeah, we were actually just hitting our stride. We definitely wanted to be peaking right up as we came up onto postseason, and had some great meets on the road and some great meets, at home in the Coliseum. And we were doing really well with our national qualifying score. So already starting to make plans on where we're going to end up in the first round, postseason. And yeah, the news came down, and that the season was going to be over. We were supposed to be hosting our senior night meet there in the Coliseum, and so got the news, and obviously we were devastated. I was devastated for the athletes that had put so much into it, and our seniors, of course. But like I said, we were peaking at just the right moment, and the news came down, and as sad as it was, I just kept reminding the team that sometimes things happen that are bigger picture than us, and we needed to remember all the people that were being affected by this, and also our administrators who had to make some really tough decisions. But it was a fun season that was happening as well, and they're all fun, but this team especially, had just a ton of motivation and a ton of spirit. And so it was definitely a little bit of a grieving process there for a little while for the team, but they're doing pretty good with it now.
If you have any questions, please click participants and then the raise hand feature. I guess I'll start. Obviously scheduled to host the Big 12 championships. Pretty disappointing, I'm assuming, for you guys to have that opportunity and have it taken away from you.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that one. We were getting ready to put on probably the preeminent event in gymnastics, for West Virginia that we'd ever hosted. A lot of work had gone into that, to bring Oklahoma and Denver and Iowa State here into the Coliseum. We had the podium, which is what you see when you watch the Olympics on television. All the equipment is up off the floor, so it was, we were definitely pulling out, all the big guns and for that meet. And but like I said, at the end of the day, it was a tough call for everybody to make, and I'm just appreciative, that the staff for WVU Athletics and the administration and everything that goes into making gymnastics go. They had worked so hard up until that point. I know it was disappointing, but we're hosting an NCAA regional next year, and we're hoping that we'll have another shot at the Big 12 championship. Waiting for, I guess, an official announcement to come down on how that's going to work. But it was definitely disappointing, but you just keep on climbing, and the next time we get a chance to host it, we're going to do the same exact thing we were planning on this year.
All right, your first question here comes from Kevin Kender. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thanks, Grant. Jason, in a normal time, how much of your athletes' work practice is strength and conditioning versus, actually working on their routines? And in this time, how different is it for them? I mean, I'm guessing not many of them have access to, all of the apparatuses. Is it safe for them, to go out and do tumbling passes, things like that in your yard? I mean, what are people trying to do just to keep a little bit of an edge?
That's a great question. Typically what we set aside, we're allowed 20 hours a week during our season, and 5 hours of that is dedicated solely to strength and conditioning every week. But given the nature of our sport, really everything that they do has some sort of, conditioning or cardio element to it, just in training the sport itself. So, right now, a lot of the private clubs that they either trained at, before they came to West Virginia, or that happen to be wherever, they're staying right now, a lot of those clubs are closed, and so they don't have access to that. Training for gymnastics is extremely hard to replicate without actually doing gymnastics. And So they're trying to be creative right now. Our rising seniors have done a great job of coordinating without any assistance from us. We're trying to make sure we stay within all the rules, and but trying to be creative in some of the workouts that they're doing. And it's just very different from every other sport. We can't throw up a basketball hoop or just go sprinting here and there. You actually have to be doing gymnastics, and they're used to training and competing on very specific, very very safe equipment, and it's a very technical sport. So it's going to be a challenge getting them back, absolutely. And we're in the process of just figuring out how to do that safely, but they're keeping busy. But it's definitely going to be a huge curveball for us when we can get back to training.
All right, your next question comes from Greg Hunter. Go ahead, Greg.
Jason, you touched on this a little bit, but in terms of the Big 12 championships that you guys are missing out on, is there a rotation in terms of how they award that? Do you guys maybe get a chance to move up in that rotation because you missed out? How is the future of that going to go?
There is a rotation, and it's done in alphabetical order by the schools. So we were supposed to host this year, obviously, and then it was going to move to Denver for next year. We expressed our interest in hosting the championship again, and I know that the talks are ongoing. I'm hoping that we have a really strong shot at that. I believe that we do, but can't confirm it, 100% right now. And I understand, they have to make decisions within the conference that are consistent, with the decisions coming down with the NCAA. Obviously, we're not the only sport affected, with the championship rotation or, pre-selected sites and things like that. So, but I'm hoping we get a shot at it for this coming up year. And that's what we're fighting for.
All right, your next question is from John Antonic. Go ahead, John.
Jason, where's your quarantine beard? I don't see you. Some of the coaches are growing beards. I don't see yours.
Yeah, it was there till a couple of days ago, but yeah, it's trying to.
More on a more serious note, what's the message you've been talking to your girls about in terms of how to deal with this? What are some of the questions you're getting? How are you helping them cope with this until you can get them all back here?
It's a great question. It's the main question that I'm getting from them is give us more guidance. Give us more workouts to do. Can we have our strength and conditioning coach, get on Zoom with them and run them through workouts? That's been their main request. And of course it's one that, we're very limited on, with the way, the rules are changing and it seems like they're constantly in flux, which I think is to be expected in the, current environment that we're in. And, the other one is they want to be here. They want to be in Morgantown. Season was cut short for them. They are very resilient and they're doing a great job of just staying positive and, being supportive at home. And, it's interesting watching them kind of go through this because the quarantine affects all of them so differently, but the common theme is they're all following the rules and staying home. And, if you follow any of them on Instagram, there definitely is no lack of creativity in the activities that they're coming up with. And, something that I've told them numerous times is, it was a quote I read after the Olympics were postponed by an American track runner. And she said, we're not owed our dreams. And I read that one day and I thought, what, that's a great way of looking at it. No dream that you achieve is worth having without having to work very hard for it. And, so I think if you come at life with that kind of an attitude, it helps to build resiliency. And so I keep telling them, yeah, we didn't quite get to the dreams that we had for this year, but it doesn't mean that we give up. It doesn't mean that we stop climbing. We keep working hard and, that's what mountaineers do.
All right. Your next question from Greg Hunter.
Jason, you've got a number of seniors on your squad, and there was a talk, at least initially, that maybe the winter sport seniors would be allowed an additional year since they didn't get to complete their season. Obviously, that is since not passed. But what were your thoughts when that was proposed? Would you have liked that? I know it would screw up your roster, your rotation of recruiting and all that, but what did you think about it?
You know, that was one of those things when it was brought up. Immediately, the first thing that came to my mind was by the time, a gymnast is reaching 21, 22 years old, their senior year, they're fairly beat up already physically. And a lot of them are kind of mentally prepared to do that last push through their senior year. So my first thought was, is this something that can be accomplished, safely for the athlete? My second thought was, I think in a perfect world, that would have been a great way to give a lot of people a second chance, that it was taken away, against their will, especially as the way that, that the athletes see it. And, that is true. But it was something that, to me, it had to be done fairly across the board for all the sports. It was going to mess up a lot of the recruiting planning that not just us, but multiple sports have in place. We recruit years ahead. And so I think that it was just going to open up a whole can of worms. And it was happening so fast that as soon as people started thinking all the details through, it became apparent that, we couldn't rush into that kind of a situation. And then at the end of the day, it comes back to resiliency and just realizing that life doesn't always pan out the way that we want it to. And as much as I hate it, for those guys and my heart breaks for them, especially this senior class, you talk about 150% on board, and to see them crying, sitting in the gym, broke my heart. But they're a good group, and I think they're going to be okay. So in the end, I think the right decision was made, from a coaching planning standpoint. But there was really no way. That was a lose-lose situation, I think.
Go ahead, John.
Been asking some coaches this, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. I know the number one, obviously, concern is everybody's health and well-being. But I think there's another component to this, and that's the mental health of your athletes. What have you done to address that, and how have you helped them along with dealing with this, since we're dealing with 19, 20, 21-year-old kids essentially?
Yeah, it's part of coaching, this generation is knowing how to reach out to them just in different ways. And, either through social media, FaceTime, whatever, whatever the case may be. And, in gymnastics, we already have a pretty robust, situation, where we offer already a lot of, mental health support. And gymnastics is a tough sport mentally. It's tough on the body. It's equally tough, on the mental health. You add that into school, full time, and just the amount of training that goes into it and their personal life. So, but what we've been doing is just trying to keep in touch with them, keep it lighthearted. For those of you that know me, I like to have fun. So I've just been trying to be goofy and stay in touch with them. And we had a show and tell contest, and we did another contest where the parents did their floor routines. They're submitting all these videos, and then they're keeping very active on social media. And so it's really just keeping them involved is really the best way to support them at this point. They're all at home, so obviously, not a lot of that system that we have in place for mental health is based here on campus. But I feel like we have a great relationship with them from administration and, from a coaching side of it, that if anyone has a specific problem going on, we'll know about it, and they're going to let us know. And so it's just one of those things. It's part of our foundation that we have that set in place, and I feel pretty good, that we're doing a pretty good job of keeping them entertained from a distance. So I hope that answers that question.
Next question comes from Greg Hunter. Greg, go ahead.
Jason, recruiting is always intriguing, and for a sport like yours that maybe doesn't get as much media attention as others, maybe the recruiting of how you do it is a little unknown. So in a normal time, how do you find your student athletes, and then how has that changed in the current climate?
Well, it's changed a lot. So typically we find the athletes, we have great relationships with literally hundreds of clubs around the country. And, so they'll send out mass emails, when we're getting close to the age where they can actively be recruited. And so basically it's all done by video clips, just simple YouTube videos, however they want to get us what they're actually training. From there, we follow up with through their club competitions that they have all over the country that are private or that are hosted by private clubs mostly. And we would travel to those, and especially this time of year, we'd be gearing up to go to our Junior Olympic National Championships, which is sponsored by USA Gymnastics. And obviously that has been canceled for this year, but that is the prime recruiting opportunity that we have to see some of the best gymnasts in the country. And then also with the Olympic trials, this was supposed to be a Olympic year. That would have been somewhere else. We would have been the national championships, which is more oriented towards the senior level athletes and the elite level. So it's really changed it up for us, and then the dead period that's in place, prevents the athletes from coming on campus to come to us. So we had several, on-campus visits that were lined up to be happening. And actually a couple of athletes were coming to our last home meet, and then we're planning on coming to the Big 12 championship. So it's definitely thrown a wrench into that. It's done it for every program. So we're all on equal footing with that. And now it's about just trying to get creative, and how you interact while staying within those rules, and, talking to a lot of club coaches. And, but, when you look at the fact that we're already recruiting into 2023, some cases 2024, not only is it a lot to keep up with, but the restrictions just make it a little bit more challenging in being able to get the West Virginia name out there, and selling basically what we're doing here, and letting people know how great of a place Morgantown is, and they can get a great education here.
Next question from Kevin Kender. Go ahead, Kevin.
Jason, I've been reading some of the thought pieces and opinion about college sports, the way they might look in the future, especially if there is a giant loss of revenue right now. And one of them was related to women's tennis, but I thought it maybe applied a little bit to gymnastics. And in that they were saying that college sports might not be able to be a pro training ground anymore. And I know that's not big for women's gymnastics. People at international level are going on and competing right now on their own. But, for sports that don't have a pro path afterwards, do you, other coaches, is that a danger? Is that a concern that you're thinking about right now, that, maybe those are maybe in a little bit of jeopardy moving forward?
Yeah, and it's even before this, that's always something in the back of my mind. Obviously, women's gymnastics, we don't generate, positive cash flow for the athletic department. No Division I program for women's gymnastics that I'm aware of, generates positive cash flow. So, and it's really your Olympic sports, so that's been an ongoing conversation and debate, for a long time. And usually when schools do have to cut budgets or cut teams, the focus swings around on those non-revenue sports, which at the end of the day, I'm a realist. That makes sense. You have to have, those sports that are bringing in the money and the ones that aren't. If you got to cut costs, it's a business decision at that point, which, it sounds kind of calculating, but at the same time, to keep things rolling, you have to make a tough decision, and it affects a lot of people. So my focus has always been doing the best job that I can in the sport that, I love, and providing a great education for these athletes, a great experience, representing West Virginia. I love it here. I'm a transplant from Georgia, but I've been here 13 or 14 years now. So, I love every second of my job. And so that's what I do. And every day, that's when I show up to work. It's all about the Mountaineers and the fans and these student athletes. And, but yeah, it is in the back of my mind. And, COVID-19 definitely throws a lot more into consideration. And, administrators and conference officials, they have some really tough decisions to make. And all that I can control is being supportive of that in any way that I can, and protect, the student athletes that I'm responsible for the best that I can. And, I'll keep fighting all the way to the end. So, but it's definitely, if you look at men's gymnastics, that is one side. They are a feeder to the Olympic program, and they're still having a lot of issues trying to hold on to that sport at the NCAA level. So I think it's definitely something that's on all of our minds, and this just brings it right back to the front, of what we're thinking, looking forward.
This is the final question, then we'll end it after Greg. Go ahead, Greg.
Jason, I'll take the final one then. So how are you keeping yourself sane? I mean, coaches are not used to sitting inside four walls. It looks like you got a pretty nice setup from what we see there, but still, how are you handling the situation yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely not a sit down kind of person. Even my desk at the Coliseum is a stand up desk, so I'm used to moving around a lot. I'm missing definitely being in the gym, missing being around the team, and the staff and everything. So how am I keeping myself sane? Well, thankfully I do have a good setup here, and I've become an expert on Zoom and Microsoft Team and group FaceTime. And there's a few other ones out there, but I am missing the actual face-to-face, with people and just the interaction. But I'm running a lot, and like I told John, I did have the the quarantine beard, but that's gone, and playing a lot of music and listening to a lot of music and reading and catching up on a lot of work. And then, of course, there's projects around the house that you put off for years, and all of a sudden you really have no excuse now not to get them done. So that's what I'm working on.
All right, Jason, I appreciate it. We're gonna go ahead and mess if you want to finish it up here.